We good? All right. All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to resume today's review and analysis of the mayor's proposed FY2026 municipal budget. We are going to kick off the afternoon session with AIM, Atlanta Information Management. Other colleagues are finishing up with lunch and trying to do about 5 hours worth of work in 20 minutes, and they will be along shortly, but we are going to get started. So Commissioner, if you are ready, we have your handouts, and if you have the clicker, you're good to go. Take it away.
Well, good afternoon, Councilmember Shook. I am Jason Sankey, serving as the Chief Information Officer for the City of Atlanta and leading the Department of Atlanta Information Management. I want to start by thanking the department for their hard work and commitment to realizing Mayor Dickens' vision for the City of Atlanta. And this first slide is a representation of our organizational structure. And joining me today is AIM's Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Chloe Broom, and Deputy CIO, Mr. Kamal Makini. Also joining me in the bullpen behind me is Deputy CIO Daphne Rackley. Moving on to the FY25 year in review, we are excited about the work we've completed, especially in partnership with ATL 311, including the integrated customer service relationship management system, live chat feature, and AI protocol enhancements. We awarded a new managed security service provider and implemented additional tiered layer security architecture. In collaboration with APD and Dean, we enhanced technology supporting public safety. In partnership with Comcast Business, we upgraded infrastructure at our community centers. We expanded Ike Smart Kiosks in traditionally underserved communities, empowering residents with greater access. We realized approximately $1.5 million in savings, and we are poised to realize approximately $2 million in revenue for FY25. And lastly, we introduced the soft launch of Microsoft Copilot to enhance productivity and effectiveness of operations. Looking ahead to FY26, we are planning for the expansion of our artificial intelligence solutions, including opportunities to utilize generative AI to enhance both internal and external interactions and operations. In collaboration with Public Safety and Dean, we will finalize the implementation of a new segregated Tier 3 data center. We plan to align with a zero trust framework to reinforce our security. We aim to elevate the citizen experience and visitor experience while enhancing digital capabilities in anticipation of the World Cup. We will finalize the implementation of Microsoft Copilot to, again, enhance the operational effectiveness throughout the city. And we will implement ongoing cost monitoring and auditing processes via risk, control, and self-assessment. We also plan to achieve an additional $2.5 million in savings in this fiscal year. And our goal is to achieve an additional $2 million in revenue. This next slide captures our FTE position count as of February 2024, and our current vacancy rate is less than 5%. In FY26, the proposed budget is a net decrease of 1%, with the bulk of that reduction in our contracted services. Our current FY25 projection is about $36 million. And as you can see with the chart, our budget remains relatively flat year over year. And with that, I will end the presentation, and we would happily answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much. So it's a pretty straightforward and flat budget, although there is something of a haircut, although I'm not seeing any cuts falling in any particular bucket. It seems like it's an aggregate, relatively small cuts. Is that what I'm seeing, or do you see it differently?
No, that is correct.
Is this vacancy rate right?
The less than 5%.
No, what is your vacancy rate?
So currently we have 104 positions that are filled with 46 that are vacant. And the vacancy is built on those positions that we have available to us, but not necessarily that we have funding dollars towards.
So those are unfunded, or some are partial, or they're
Correct.
all unfunded?
Some are funded and some are partially.
All right, well, I mean, I take it your FTE count reflects your discussions with the admin and DOF.
That is correct.
So are you anticipating additional hires?
We are. So we have some open positions right now that we are actively recruiting for. Our year-over-year FTE count remains relatively flat, and that's due to attrition. We also contract managed services to augment staff. We've done that year-over-year and remain constant in that spend, but we have remained relatively flat.
I guess here's a question for FY25 in terms of operations. Is the vacancy review board going to remain, or is it going away? It's going to remain, says the COO. Okay, until y'all feel comfortable that it's not needed. Okay, well, I approve of that. That's good news. All right, others with questions or comments? All right, well, okay, President Shipman.
Presentation at the beginning of the budget process that because of the vacancy review board, that overall there's going to be a net decline in city staff. It's anticipated. Does your budget track at all with the number of city employees? I mean, if the number of city employees was to go up substantially or down substantially, are there variable costs in your budget that would change because of licenses or support or anything else?
There is. So as an example, our Microsoft Office 365 licenses, it's a per user basis. So as numbers reduce, that overall yearly cost also reduces.
And what percentage of your overall budget do you think is somehow related in that way to headcount?
I can get the exact percentage, but high level, I'm looking at probably 10%.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
All right, if there is nothing else, that's what happens when you bring in a flat, clean budget. You're released on your own recognizance. Which leaves us to await Parks, and I don't believe they're out there yet, so they're supposed to be here in 20 minutes. So until then, I guess we're on a mini break. Introduce us to your team and take it away.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Chair Shook and members of the City Council Budget Committee. My name is Justin Cutler, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, and I have the unique honor of working with these men and women up here and the 500-plus men and women that serve the Department of Parks and Rec and serve the neighbors. So thank you to them and to their teams for what they do every day to make sure our community has great parks and recreation services, from after-school programs to senior programs to beautiful parks and green spaces, trails, and all things after school and out of school time. Thank you to the men and women of the Department of Parks and Recreation. Today here at the table with me to my right, I have Director of Administration and Finance, Henry Thompson. Also to my right, Dr. Galen Williams, Deputy Commissioner of Park Planning and Design. To my left, I have Doug Voss, Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Rachel Marr, Deputy Commissioner of Partnerships and Enterprise, and at the end of the table, LaShawn Dudley, Deputy Commissioner of Administration, Strategy, and Innovation. In the audience, we have Director of Park Planning and Design, Director Keith Hicks. Thanks for joining us, Keith. There may be some other people joining us, and we also have Destiny Hooks. She was here, who we can't do our work without. She's a recruiter for the Department of Parks and Recreation. I also want to give a special shout out to the many departments that support our work. I know you've heard from DEEM, AIM, and the Department of Law, and you'll hear from procurement as well, but these departments really help make our work possible. And it's without these departments and many others that we would not be able to serve our community with Parks and Recreation services. So I just want to give a special thanks. I was listening to the AIM presentation, and they were talking about how they're updating the fiber to our recreation centers. That allows us to have esports labs and have the latest and greatest technology. So thank you to those departments as well. The investment that you make in those departments inevitably comes back to the Department of Parks and Recreation and helps us do our job every day. So thank you to those brother and sister departments. Well, we are here and excited to be here today to celebrate the accomplishments of fiscal year 25, talk about the investments we made last year, as well as share our goals for fiscal year 26, answer any questions you may have today. This budget represents a 10.6% increase to personnel, supplies, and materials to keep pace with cost, cover increasing utility cost, and right-size our budget to cover extra help for seasonal programming. At the base form, budgets are numbers on a piece of paper that guide expenditures and revenues for our next fiscal year. But in reality, there's so much more. They're about people. They're about people. The work that we do is fundamentally about people. It's about children, having a safe place to play, build friendships, a place for seniors to age in place and to be healthy. And from first-time jobs to seasoned professionals, we have an amazing team that makes it happen. And together, with these resources, we make recreation and parks the heart and soul of Atlanta through interconnected systems of parks, recreation centers, trails, and natural areas. And we are excited today to present our budget to you. And now I'll turn it over to LaShawn Dudley to go over our org chart.
Good afternoon, Chair Shook and council members. I'm just going to provide a high-level overview of our organizational structure. As you can see here, we're comprised of 4 divisions with our corresponding offices under each one. And as you know, these divisions play a huge part in making recreation and parks the heart and soul of this city through diverse yet seamless interconnected systems of parks, recreation, and natural areas. But I do just want to bring your attention to 2 offices that we created this fiscal year. The first one is our Office of Public Safety. Again, it's a new department thanks to our millage funding, which is responsible for our park ranger program, the camera installations, safety programming and training to our departmental staff. And the second is our Office of Natural Resources, again, a new office this fiscal year, which is responsible for the management and access to our public trees and natural areas, and is responsible for managing all trees within our 1,400 linear miles of right-of-way and our close to 4,500 acres of parkland. And with that, I'll transfer it over to Commissioner Cutler. Thank you.
Great. Well, this last year was an exciting year in fiscal year 25. One of our biggest accomplishments was executing a joint use agreement with the Atlanta Public Schools. This increased access to recreation centers, park spaces, playgrounds, and play fields across our city between the Department of Parks and Rec and Atlanta Public Schools. This means that neighbors will be able to access public school grounds, playgrounds, fields, after school to support their recreational pursuits. APS will also be able to utilize our fields, our recreation centers, pools, golf courses, and tennis centers for sporting programs. In the end of the day, this will save APS upwards of $500,000 in potential rental fees. And also DPR will be able to access additional gym space at APS schools for our expanded and our very popular basketball program. So we now have access to 6 gyms, and we hope to be able to access more in the future. So that's really exciting. Also, the Trust for Public Land in 2024 issued an updated park score, which had us in the top 25 for the first time since we've been keeping track. We are 25th among the 100 U.S. cities nationwide, the highest finisher in our history. Also, our budget allocation is a bright spot on our park score, as well as average park size and total park acreage are areas for improvement. We also onboarded 8 additional park rangers to enhance safety and security in our city parks, and also as well as our facilities and special events. We hired a safety analyst to further enhance our process and maintain functionality of all our cameras, which is really important. And we continue to work with APD, the Beltline, and various entities to coordinate safety patrols, as well as Midtown Blue, ADID, and other public safety organizations. For fiscal year 26, we continue to collaborate with partners to deliver programs focused on volunteerism, health, wellness, food access, and environmental education intended to impact over 7,000 participants. That's both volunteers and participants in the partnership-based activities. This includes Love Your Park, Make Atlanta Your Own Gym, which recently kicked off. It's an active living campaign in partnership with Fulton County Board of Health. Also, our community garden program, which was highlighted in our Activate ATL strategic plan, highlighting the need for greater food access through community gardens and park spaces. And also a partnership with Home Plate in partnership with the Braves for food distribution. We recently had an event at C.T. Martin Recreation Center, and we hope to expand that to other spaces as well as environmental education partnership in line with Activate ATL. We also intend to expand our youth athletic programming to include girls flag football, girls softball, as well as a co-ed youth soccer program, and lacrosse. One of our biggest needs is to increase opportunities for young ladies, and so we've increased our girls' participation by over 320 individuals in all of our young women's sports, which is really important. We also continue strategic acquisitions in 2026. We're working to do that to further enhance quality of life. We're looking to use our community impact fees, our tree trust fund dollars, donations, and our park millage to acquire acres with our ultimate goal of increasing from 4,600 acres to 7,000 acres to support a thriving and ever-expanding community. And there's so much more to do as well. But now I'll turn it over to Doug Voss to talk about our headcount. Oh. There we go.
Thank you, Commissioner. This next slide presents the current head count for the department. In total, there are 545 positions that are represented through 3 account strings. Of note, we've experienced a downward trend in our overall vacancy rate in the general fund. In FY23, that was about 26%. The following year, it went down to 20%, and now we're at 18.5. This number's actually gone down since this slide has been taken in February, so we're excited about that. The head count from millage funding, which includes the Office of Parks Design and the Park Ranger program that the Commissioner mentioned, as well as a few others, as well as our trust fund account, which primarily funds our golf operations, as well as some positions from both parks and recreation. I'll now turn the presentation over to Budget Director Henry Thompson to discuss the next slide.
Thank you, D.C. Voss. Good afternoon, Chair Shook and council members. DPR's proposed budget for FY26 is $57.4 million. It's an 11% increase from FY25 adopted budget of $51.8 million. This increase is in alignment with the mayor's priorities and organizational staffing plan, including full-time and seasonal staffing resources to provide ongoing park maintenance services, quality recreational programming for youth, teens, adults, and seniors alike. The proposed budget also includes funding to support increased utility and fleet costs as DPR continues to expand parkland, facilities, and programmatic offerings. Thank you. Now I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Cutler.
Great. And with that, we are now happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay.
And we also have our CDHS update next Tuesday. So.
All right. I just need to recognize, I question that without Michael or Esther here, I question the validity of this process. But let's assume it's legal. Questions or comments? I mean, Ms. Collins, followed by Mr. Hillis, followed by Mr. Winston, followed by Mr. Shipman.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. My first question, in terms of, I know you stated that you guys added this year the new public safety piece, Department of Public Safety, and also with the cameras. And just curious in terms of, was there any, I mean, I'm quite sure it was, but why was, in terms of collaboration with APD, to reduce any duplicative services, things of that nature?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Councilmember Collins. One of the things that we found is with our camera system. So we worked with APD to identify our top 20 parks for different activities, antisocial behavior, and then we developed a strategy in partnership with APD looking at to replicate the Midtown Blue model, where we observe and report different instances that are occurring within our parks and recreation spaces. So our park rangers are focused on, it's not about arresting or apprehending or prosecuting people. It's about observing and reporting and coordinating. So they are our eyes and ears out in our parks. This has led to a number of stolen vehicles being impounded, led to a number of coordinations with APD around criminal activity in some of our parks. It's also led to our ability to monitor our parks for event compliance, ensuring that people have proper permits, addressing noise ordinance violations, in partnership with APD. So really, we're able to be the eyes and ears to then call in support from APD in specific parks where we may have challenges or ongoing issues. So it's been a big help. APD has really appreciated the work and the collaboration, and we continue to deepen that in this next year, our second year now of having this program. On our camera side, you know, as part of the Moving Atlanta Forward bond program, we've been working hard to implement a new camera system. We're also working to monitor our own cameras so that we can deploy APD resources or work with APD resources when need be to say, hey, we see this happening in this park. Here's where we need to go. And for these large events, we're also working with APD on trimming trees around our cameras as well as their cameras to ensure visibility and coordination. So we're working really closely with APD and also Midtown Blue and ADID, their officer program.
Thank you. And then also, in the budget, it reflects an increase for personnel services and benefits of a little bit close to $4 million, but it also shows you have over about 130 vacancies. And so just more conversation in terms of the plan of filling these vacancies, but also the justification for the increase, being that you have so many vacancies and possible opportunity to kind of, I guess, streamline and balance that cost out, since that is the largest request, the largest increase request.
Yeah, so if you look at our regular salaries line, you know, one of the challenges is right-sizing our budget. And so our department, over this last year, we've gone through an exercise to identify all of the vacant and unfunded positions and filled funded and unfunded positions, really to bring that in alignment. So our goal in fiscal year 26 is to reduce the total number of filled unfunded positions. So part of these resources help to do that. Also the addition of the 5 program specialists to support our teen programs. That together, along with additional salaries for extra help and some overtime, allow us to cover historical overages related to salaries, especially for our seasonal Camp Best Friends program. Historically, we've gone over budget in these categories. You'll notice that this year's budget is significantly less than fiscal year 24 actuals, as well as fiscal year 25 projected. So we tend to spend more on the personnel and the extra help category. So this is right-sizing that budget to provide more seasonal support, which we used in the past, but it was never budgeted for. And so that's why those increases occurred.
And then my last question, just the capital outlays piece, I see there's a reduction there, but I know that there are conversation, I guess, in terms of upgrades that are in alignment, that, you know, in terms of upgrades or, you know, renovations with some of our recreation centers throughout the city. Is this line item, though, well, for clarity, would those requests go through DEEM, or how is that managed?
Yeah, so the capital outlays item, Henry can speak specifically to what that is, and then I'll talk about the remainder of the question.
Okay, all right. Yes, Councilmember. So the reduction in the capital outlay is a result of moving some of the projects and some of the capital outlay projects to the millage or park improvement fund to support those items.
And then Ms. Collins, or Councilmember Collins, that's where the majority of our capital improvement money comes from, is our park millage. So what you see here is as Henry described it, but then in addition to that, we have $40 million in park millage that is dedicated to fixing parks and recreation facilities.
Will we get a presentation or a kind of layout of those funds as well?
Today, we're talking about the general fund, but I'd be happy to follow up with you afterwards.
Great, thank you. That's it, Chair.
Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Cutler and your team. I'll just follow up from Councilmember Collins. I was going to request the kind of a breakdown over fiscal year 25 of what that increased Parks Improvement Fund has been spent on and what it may be spent on over the next month and a half, and then what the proposal is for fiscal year 26 to spend that Parks Improvement Fund capital. So I would request that as well. And other questions, Councilmember Collins asked about the cameras. On the park ranger program, so I understand, as was mentioned, most of that staff are not sworn post-certified police officers. It is led by, I believe, Major Singh, who's here in the audience. And I definitely understand where you're coming from about, they're not focused on arrest and, the eyes in the parks. But is there anyone else on staff that is a sworn post-certified police officer that they can call so we're not burdening our police zones with calls that are generated from those park ranger services?
No, thank you, Councilmember Hillis. As you mentioned, Major Singh actually leads that division. He is still sworn APD through the recapture program. We also have Officer Jackson, who's another APD officer that's dedicated. We really greatly appreciate that from APD and Chief Sherbaum. In addition, as you know, if we need to, at certain events, we would hire off-duty APD that have those same opportunities, but through Major Singh and Officer Jackson, we feel like we have a pretty good communication. Major Singh actually still attends FOD and all of the regular same command, so we have that integration weekly.
Understood. All right, I think that completes my questions for now, but we'll look forward to that request of myself and Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Whitson.
Thank you, Chair Shook. Thank you, Commissioner Cutler and your team for this presentation. I did want to ask about the contracted services. We've seen a significant decrease in that since FY23, another decrease this year. Can you just explain kind of where we're seeing, I guess the reduction in contracted services?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. I'll take that. You'll see this reduction. Again, we had a lot of maintenance and repair items that were typically in the general fund, but as the millage has increased, we've been able to shift some of those maintenance items to the parks millage.
Okay, all right. And then maybe this is more of a follow-up. Park and Rec obviously generates revenue from, rental fees and that kind of stuff, and it's not really presented here in this budget. Would love to just kind of see maybe a follow-up in how those, the numbers that are generated from Parks and Recreation and how those are allocated towards various funds. I think there could be a larger conversation about how your budget is offset from that, seeing the increase, or not even really an increase this year, but just looking at how that might be offset in your budget. So we'd love to see that as a follow-up.
Yeah, we're happy to provide that. If you go to your budget book and look into the trust funds, those are the places where we account for the revenues that we receive from Parks and Recreation activities. So you'll see like donations to Parks and Recreation Culture, that's the golf fund. So it's more of a revolving account, if you will, that we generate revenue and then we debit the expenses associated with golf to that space. Similarly, we have a recreation trust fund, a youth athletics trust fund, a ground and site trust fund, which is for all the park reservation fees that go into that account. And then that pays for pressure washing, bark mulch for the playgrounds and other kind of consumable items is what we typically use out of that fund. So, but we're happy to get you an accounting of that.
All right, thank you. I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner and team. Let me start with some questions. I'm having a little trouble on the budget. So if we look at FY25 projections on your page 5, top line, personnel services and benefits, 37.6 projected as of the second quarter, 35.6 proposed budget. Do you think 37.6 is where you're going to end the year, or do you think that that actually is going to end up lower than what the second quarter projection was? Or stated differently, are you already making moves on the personnel cost side this fiscal year?
No, we anticipate landing around the 37 million mark. However, in the proposed fiscal year 26, we are looking at reductions of vacant positions. So you'll see in our personnel paper abolishment of some positions, but also some of those positions are now being paid out of the millage.
So you're expecting to abolish funded positions that are unfilled or funded positions that are filled?
Funded positions that are unfilled.
Funded positions that are unfilled to the tune of $2 million?
It'll be a combination of both unfunded vacant or funded vacant positions as well as positions that we're moving to the park millage.
So I guess the tough question there is 24 actuals came in at 36.4, 25 adopted budget was 31.9. Projections are 37.6, but you think you can get $2 million out of that line item over the course of the next year. So what changes?
As I stated, the abolishment of some of the vacant funded positions and using the millage to cover some of those positions.
Okay, so let me ask another detailed question. The budget book on 254, the defined contribution line goes down significantly. That's 380,000 in savings. Can you talk just a little bit about why that line specifically goes down?
I'll defer that question to the chief or to the finance department.
Yolanda Carr, Deputy CFO. So there are a combination of things that are happening in the DC line. As the commissioner mentioned, there will be some positions that will be reallocated to the Park Improvement Fund. But in addition to that, during the year, we had a change from the hybrid plan over to a new DB plan 2025. There were employees that were in a hybrid plan where you contribute 8% for DB and 3.75 for DC, which were mainly employees that were grade 19 and below. So with that shift, because that change happened in the beginning of the year, January 2025, this is really just looking at this for a full year. So it's twofold, moving employees, and then also we changed the pension plan from a hybrid to a 2025 DB plan.
Okay. What about the other finances line going down 288? That's another part of the savings.
That portion will be due to GMA. GMA is where we have our equipment. And so what we've noticed with GMA, they're scheduled to end in 2027. So with that being the case, the schedule of the payments have decreased over the years. So this is what we're seeing here as far as with the budget, as far as financing the payment for GMA.
Okay. And then the supplies line is going up significantly, 1.4 million. Can you talk a little bit about that increase?
Yeah, sure. So that's based on previous actuals when it comes to primarily utilities, water, electric, just right sizing with those actual items based on previous actuals.
Okay. So I think I just sum up, and then I've got another easier line of questions, but I think I'd sum up by saying we've invested a lot in parks. This council has been incredibly supportive. I personally am very supportive of what you're doing. And in fact, I would say that the growth of parks since FY22 has been slower than the overall budget. It's actually, the Parks Department has had increases since we got here in 22, but actually not as fast as the overall budget. So I'm not questioning the level of spending, but I am trying to make sure that if we're truly right-sizing the budget, that we're truly right-sizing the budget, and that we aren't going to get down 6 months and have another, hey, actually, it took a lot more to run it. So the push here is to make sure that this is actually pressure tested, not to backfill to a number, but to actually to where the run rate is. So let me go on to just a couple of other questions. You noted the success in moving the park score up, which has been a huge achievement. what areas of the city still need park space most? So we're getting the Bunnan Park, I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, in Northwest. What other geographies really an acquisition of new space would help move the 10-minute walk score / the park score?
Yeah, I think you have to look specifically at District 9, 10, and 11. Those are the areas, as well as parts of 12, that we're targeting acquisition. Those are also the areas that have a higher level of development, so there is some sense of urgency. So that's why we're working with the Conservation Fund to look at both tree trust fund opportunities to acquire large tree areas to preserve those natural spaces for hiking, nature experiences, fishing, also clean air, clean water, reducing asthma and the consequences of asthma and heat island effect. So that's one option. We're also using CIE dollars to acquire active park spaces. So we know that natural areas are great, but people also want to have a picnic, right? They want to go to a playground. They want to go to a splash pad. So we're working actively to acquire in those 3 districts.
Just speaking of the Bunnan Park, does this budget reflect some of the Bunnan investments, either this or on the capital side, or are we anticipating that's going to be in further fiscal years?
Yeah, that's on the park millage side. We have some stabilization money for both this property and a property that we're eyeing around Cascade Nature Park. We have some stabilization funds for a property we're still pursuing in that neighborhood too.
And that's in this FY26 budget? But
Correct, yeah. We actually had it in fiscal year 25, and then we're carrying it forward in subsequent years.
And then one other question, the Midtown Alliance recently announced their acquisition of a site on 14th for a park. Has it been determined yet the long-term management of that park? Do we think that's going to end up being managed by a city park, not a city park? Do we know yet?
We don't know at this time, but I would anticipate Midtown Alliance being the one to actively manage that. I think they have some more flexibility as to how they can manage that space. Having Midtown own that space could allow for different types of events and experiences, different type of vending than what we may be able to provide under our current vending and permit policies. So I think it's a conversation to be had. But at the end of the day, let's say, for instance, Midtown was ceased to exist, that would then come back to the city of Atlanta, and it would be a city of Atlanta park.
But we don't anticipate that that's going to add a cost
Correct.
burden at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Vice Chair,
yes.
Mr. Vice Chair, you snuck in there on me.
Councilmember Overstreet.
It's a great place to start. Thank you all so much for your presentation today. I had one question, honestly, that I thought was a good thing, and Councilmember Winston asked, and I want to know why were our contracted services 5%? And I thought that was great, because that means we're doing more in-house work, and I love that part. That's what our budget is for, and we do have the trained talent to do a good job here at the city. But now I want to take this time to, first of all, really thank you all for the work that you're doing in the communities, specifically around land acquisition and installations of really good and true wellness components in our communities. We know that there is a health gap in our city where South Side is considered to live 20 years shorter than North Side, and depending on zip code, it could be better or worse. And I think that you all are doing a really, really, really good job of installing what's necessary to change that gap in the city of Atlanta. And I know that when I'm calling with suggestions on new parcels and, what are we doing here and how can we upgrade that, and you all are always open. I see a tremendous difference since 2018, since I became a council member and came to City Hall in 2025. I mean, it's a huge difference per park, per area, and per involvement. Like, the communities are using our park spaces like never before and giving suggestions on what they'd like to see. I mean, they're asking me to buy benches and bleachers, and they're coming to so many more events, and it's just really been eye-opening. And I say this all the time, and it's still true today. This is money well spent, because we are not just doing the basics. We are raising our game as a city, the way that we're doing our parks and recreation. I'm glad to hear that our pools will be open and on schedule like they're supposed to be, and because I know that there are so many parents that really have on their calendar the day that they can start taking their children for the summer to a nice space, and we've upgraded our splash pads and our pools in such a way that we should make them available, and people are looking forward to that. We're making it a full-blown thing in Atlanta, and it's something that's expected of us now, and I'm glad that we're here. So count on me to support your budget asks. I'm always open to ideas of making our wellness better in the city of Atlanta, and that's what your department does, 100%. And I just want to thank you all for the work that you're doing, and just keep it up. Always been responsive to me, so continue to let me know what I can do to better help you. And I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner and team, for all you all do for our parks and recreation system. Camp Best Friends is going to be an exciting time. We are all excited about Camp Best Friends. Wilson Mill Park and Flanagan look really, really good. I drove by them today, so thank you all for that. We are getting ready to install the Isabel Gates Webster marker at that park off of Peyton Road. So that marker has arrived, so we're just waiting on a date to get it installed. I think we did a walkthrough last year, so we know where that is going to be. I do have a couple of concerns. Is there any way we can budget for free swim lessons? Commissioner, I sent you a detailed email about statistics and research, and when I talked to the parents who actually they work at the skating rink or Popeye's Chicken, they need that help. They want their kids to learn how to swim, but they're in the pool jumping around, but in the baby pool, but they cannot swim. They need that help. So whereas we have the nice hours for free swim at the natatorium, we do need an instructor. That will be a big deal if we have folks that can teach our young folks how to swim. That will be great. Secondly, the garbage can outside of the recreation center, if we could put that on some type of pressure washing schedule. The center is phenomenal. It was so packed in every room yesterday. It was great. So the garbage cans, we need those pressure washed every week, like on the weekend. The flowers are beautiful, but we definitely need to see if do we contract that out, or do we have a pressure washer? Because like right now we're having a GDOT meeting at 5 o'clock. When people walk up there, you look at this big, beautiful building, but it's the outside, and it needs to be pressure washed. So let's get that done, please, for the citizens. The dance studio, we have one of the best dance studios in Atlanta. We have, I think, Charles Phillips, he interviewed a couple of vendors, but we want that dance studio to go back as it was when the center first opened, the first 10 or 15 years. We need that dance studio. It's one of the best in the city of Atlanta. Secondly, do we have any plans to renovate Collier Heights Recreation Center, remodel, or something for that recreation center? And we do need a sound system at C.T. Martin. When folks come in for anything, they have to contract that. What we have now is not sufficient. So let's try to order a sound system with 2 microphones so that when the seniors are talking to whoever's at the front, we can move that mic around. We need a very good sound system. That's something that we had before, not sure what happened, but we do need that because we're busy. I'm sure it's one of the busiest in the city, if not the busiest in the city. And do we have a status of the Pocket Park at at Benjamin Mays and Peyton Road? The Pocket Park, that's been on the books a very long time.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to kind of take, do you want me to take those in order if you? Yeah. So first, on the Isabel Webster Gates installation, yeah, we'll make that happen. On the scholarships for swimming, yeah, I know at last council meeting we were talking about, or on Monday, we were talking about the Atlanta Water Safety Coalition. And I think that's definitely something that we want to make happen, is how are we providing both free swim lessons at our recreation centers as well as at our outdoor pools, because we recognize that people of color are disproportionately impacted by childhood drowning. It's the leading cause of death among, if you're under the age of 5, it's the second leading cause of death if you're 5 to 18. So it's definitely something that we need to do something about. I think it may be a combination of free swim lessons or free swim experiences in water safety as well as scholarships. One of the challenges by offering something for free is that people who can pay then don't pay, and those that can pay.
But that's okay. I mean,
Right.
If somebody
okay.
slips through the crack, it's okay.
It's okay.
It happens in everything. So, I mean, we need to really make that a priority, because for them to have that large pool, and for those that live in Allen Temple apartments, the old Allen Temple, those that live on Delmar Lane, more and more kids are in that community.
Yep.
And they play there, but they need to learn how to swim. Let's make that a priority, please.
Agreed.
Let's make that a priority. Let's don't worry about if they cheat a little bit. Don't worry about it. Okay? Don't worry about it.
And then you mentioned the
Pocket
garbage
park,
can at CT.
Yeah, the garbage. That really needs to be done. We have a GDOT meeting today. If you look at our schedule, we have so many meetings, and when you walk up and look at all those beautiful flowers that Quentin Moore and his wonderful, wonderful team back there have planted, it takes away when you have to look at that garbage can. Have you all seen it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, funny you should ask. And through the power of technology and the video feed system here, Latasha Tucker, our Assistant Director of Park Maintenance, she just texted me and said she has somebody on her way over to CT Martin to address that very issue. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really would appreciate that. And let's get that on a schedule regularly. It's a premier center. If you haven't tried it, come on out. It was busting at the seams last night.
And you also mentioned the dance studio, which we're continuing to add additional contractors, and we'll look for additional.
But do we have anything in it now? Because
yes, we do have a provider in there now.
We have a vendor? Who is that vendor? Because I've not met them, and I have not seen any activity.
We'll get with you. I believe the company name is Area Dance, but we'll get that after the meeting.
Yeah, we want to publicize that. That's a big deal.
Then mentioned Collier and what we can do there. We do have a plan beginning fiscal year 26. We'll begin a phased approach to address the kitchen, the bathrooms, and the front entry to make it more inviting to the community. So you'll begin to see some changes out there beginning next fiscal year 26.
Let's look at a total renovation.
Yep.
I mean, it's never been remodeled. Collier Heights Rec Center has never been remodeled. It should be on the same level now as Flanagan Rec Center. It's a small center, but it's a community center. Let's look at doing right by Collier Heights Rec Center. Let's make that a priority. I think we walked out before, but the phase approach, let's give those folks in Carroll Heights who helped build that community. Let's look at what we can do for Collier Heights Rec Center.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
And then the sound system, we'll look into that and make that happen. And then the 1045 Peyton Road property. So we've reached out to the property owner several times. We've engaged both Conservation Fund has sent certified mail. We found a possible associate that we reached out to through just our investigative research.
Can't find them.
Our next step is to work with DEEM and APD through their code enforcement office to see if they have any way to get a hold of the property owner. We've done internet searches, and if it comes to it, we'll work with some other way to identify the individual and make contact. So we have not lost sight of this. We do know it's frustrating both for you, the community, and for us to try and find this property owner. But we are working hard to identify who owns the property. Is it vacant? But if any of the neighbors see the individual there, please let them know that we're trying to get in touch with them to see what we can do to purchase the property.
Okay, and my last question and my concern is about the staff, the recreation staff and their salaries and the directors that run the larger centers, their lives are eaten up. I mean, it's 24/7. They may have to go to the center at any time if someone can't come to work. What are their salaries at the larger centers as opposed to the smaller rec centers? Those directors, the directors, what are their salaries?
Yeah, Councilmember, I don't know if I can go into their details here, but they are part of the compensation study in the second group, which I believe is still moving forward. We can check with HR on that, but they have all been discussed, and that is all part of the second phase of the compensation plan, is my understanding.
So you do realize that it's a big difference in running an old Adamsville or Adams Park as opposed to a ML King and a CT Martin, where it's rentals all day, every day. And the centers are kept clean. I'm very satisfied with the cleanliness of the centers, but I do worry about the human aspect of it. The folks that are there, when I see them on Sunday, I see them on Saturday, I see them at 9 o'clock at night. Then the same folks at midnight basketball. You have to be concerned with that. They're living. How are they living? I mean, if they make $65,000 a year, that's not adequate. That is not adequate for those folks that run those large rec centers. They should be compensated properly.
Yeah, we share that same concern. I think one of the things that we do at our Class 4 sites, like CT Martin, William Walker, Martin Luther King, and Roosevelt Fan, is we actually have two managers. So we have a senior community facility manager, and then we have a community facility manager. So
But
the intent is
that
not
head
to...
person, that number one person, they carrying a lot.
Understood,
The
yeah.
load is heavy.
Yeah.
Let's treat people properly. Let's look at those salaries and let's do right by our folks. And just trying to see the salary of the recreation center employees. Are we keeping up with those as opposed to the park staff? Are they moving up as well? Or is someone paying attention to those folks that take care of the children and the after-school programs?
Yeah, we recently completed the class and comp study, and we found that our compensation level were in line with industry best practice related to frontline employees. And so, yeah.
And recreation is getting the appropriate funding needed?
Correct.
In this budget, recreation is getting the appropriate funding?
Correct, and it's actually going up because we are, one of the benefits of the park millage is a portion of it, as per the council ordinance, was that a portion of the park millage, which hadn't gone to recreation before, is now going to recreation. So even this year, as our property values in Atlanta continue to increase, so does the park millage, which is meaning that we have more resources to provide more programs for seniors and for youth at our recreation centers. So those services will continue to increase and be bolstered by both the general fund and the park millage.
Thank you, and thank you for getting the televisions up and running in the weight room, but we need new equipment there. I don't think that equipment has ever been replaced. To my knowledge, that equipment is the same equipment that was there 20 years ago. We need fresh stuff. We see Planet Fitness right now on the street, and they got some good stuff in there. So let's be up to snuff. 2025.
And we'll be doing that this fiscal year, actually.
It's 2025. CT Martin Rec Center needs new equipment. We want our community to stay healthy, and people are in there. It's 6:30, 6:45. We have folks that come in, so we can do a walkthrough or whatever, and let's get that going. But again, thank you all so much, and thank you for your responsiveness as always. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner. Sorry that Councilmember Bakhtiari and I were late. We were actually at the State of DeKalb event as we represent DeKalb County as well. I do have the floor now, and then Councilmember Bakhtiari will follow. I'm actually going to jump off of Councilmember Boone's point. I'm not going to dive into the numbers. I'm looking out, and I'm not seeing our usual sea of green T-shirts in the audience, and I think that's just an indication of the community understanding that with the millage rate, y'all actually are, you know, for the first time I think that I've been on council or second, y'all are well resourced. So I'm not as concerned about the actual line items. But I will challenge y'all in this sense, in that the next chapter of the City of Atlanta's Parks and Recs, operational or strategy or vision, I think could, and I'm hoping should, and I'm saying this somewhat selfishly, be how we explore our partnerships with organizations, conservancies specifically, that we have already entrusted to help steward our assets, but can provide an even bigger leveraging opportunity for us going forward, provided we think through and establish what that relationship looks like and what how we might expand and rethink the opportunities that we afford them, because we do have Chastain, we do have Grant Park, we have Piedmont in ours, in my district. We have other parks that I know aspire to have conservancy and friends of groups that, you know, there would, I'm envisioning kind of this evolution of, you start with a neighborhood park, you form your friends up, but at some point you elevate, you graduate into this next level of conservancies, whereby you have a lot more freedom to go and do great things. That then allows your department to reserve the powder that you have to acquire more land and really nurture the younger generation of parks and conservatives. So obviously, I'm going to, you know, Shook's not going to be happy with me, but I am going to turn it back to my district specifically. But Piedmont Park just came out with a big, bold vision for what the park could look like in 30 years. And I think, given where y'all are at fiscally, and again, where we are in our life cycle of parks, this may be the time for us to look at and explore what that looks like next. Because we're not going to be able to do it on our own, millage rate notwithstanding. So let's be creative and let's think about and rethink how we go going forward. It's just an opportunity. I don't know if you want to respond to that. If you don't need to, but if you're not going to, then I'm going to hand it over to Councilmember.
No, I actually would like to respond to that, because I think I too see that as the future opportunity within the Department of Parks and Recreation, and that's why I created the Deputy Commissioner of Partnerships and Enterprise position, was to, in recognition that, you know, we didn't have the capacity previously to really engage our friends and conservancy groups. Because it's, when I think of partners, I think not just of the conservancies, I also think of our over 100+ friends groups, right? These are the boots on the ground, the individual who's out picking up trash, who is spreading bark chips, you know, every Saturday morning, as well as the conservancies who are raising tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars, have paid staff, right? So there's a continuum of that opportunity, like you stated, that you want to, you know, not every friends group is going to become a conservancy, and so we want to make sure that we're providing those opportunities, and that's why we launched Love Your Park. That's why we're looking at a high, kind of a continuum of opportunity for engagement, where you have the basic friends group, then there's maybe kind of an endorsed partner, and then there's a conservancy or some type of continuum of opportunity for engagement. One of the biggest things that we are challenged by is friends groups that want to become a conservancy, but that may not have that capacity to achieve that certain status or level. And so we're working to build that capacity, right, and that's why we have Rachel and Deputy Commissioner Marr, is to help build the capacity. She hosts a quarterly get-together where conservancies and friends groups are able to share ideas, build relationships. And these are friends groups from all over our community, from Cascade Springs to Chastain Park, from, you know, Old Fourth Ward to Cook Park and Wilson Mill Park. You know, everybody's getting together and sharing ideas on how they can work, and really do see that as an opportunity to do more and to leverage both volunteers as well as conservancies like Piedmont Park in your case. So, you know, 1 in every $5 was spent on Parks and Recreation services came from the private and nonprofit sector. I believe we have moved the needle on that, but that's still a large part of how we get parks done in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think it's a great multiplier opportunity on all the levels that you said. All right, Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner and EPR team, for being here. First, I just wanted to say thank you, echoing what Councilmember Juan said in terms of faith that has been reinstated, improvements in parks. So, I mean, arguably, I've had an improvement in almost every single park in my district, in part because of the partnership with Park Pride, but also because of the millage rate increase and catching up on a lot of these services. Do you have a couple questions? I'm sorry that we were late. I was listening on the way over, and I was hoping that you could I know I missed the question about temporary staffing. Could you please explain what temporary staffing is and why it's had such a large increase? Because it seems to be, yeah, I'll let you answer that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so our extra help number has gone up substantially given the historical under budgeting of our extra help line. So historically, we've been over in a couple lines. One is extra help, the other is utilities. So this budget here right sizes the amount of resources that we have both for extra help, which is our seasonal employees. So this is park seasonals, this is lifeguards, this is Camp Best Friends, and our Lake Allatoona camp. So it's all of those extra help kind of seasonal positions. We hire over 300 people.
Okay.
So it's almost like adding a whole another 2 or 3 departments in some cases, right? If you look at the math, to the Department of Parks and Recreation for a period of roughly 6 to 8 months, right? And so that increase is accomplished with the extra help in that line.
Okay, thank you. And just could you just kind of define temporary staffing? Because a lot of folks in my district have been watching and texting me during budget hearings. So I was hoping you might be able to elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, maybe Doug, do you want to talk about temporary staffing?
Well, thanks, Councilmember. There's, in the Parks Department, there's probably 2 or 3 different categories I'd say make the bulk of it. The smallest group is probably about 70 individuals that help us with the mowing season in Atlanta. Of course, that can run anywhere from April 1st to October, so it's long, but it's temporary. We do look for those staff to hopefully become full-time staff if they learn the skills needed. The second group, which is new for us, is the lifeguard group, which is going to start on May 24th, and it goes to about Labor Day.
Which, fantastic job on that. Thank you.
I'm super excited about that. That's about 100 to 120. Then the bulk of it is actually just a 6-week, our camp runs 7 weeks, so maybe by the time you get on board and off, it's maybe 8 weeks max, which is over, and it's actually closer to 500 that we hire for Camp Best Friends, but it's literally for that 8-week period.
Understood, thank you. Next, I have a lot of questions and they're all over the place. So the piece on the rec centers and our emergency cooling and emergency heating locations, so I believe we have 3 right now. Is there talks about expanding, scaling those up, changing the way that we operate them? Because obviously we're seeing more extreme weather patterns, we're seeing upticks in certain numbers, so I was hoping y'all might be able to speak to that because it feels like we're always very reactionary and trying to do the best we can because this is not a unique issue. It's growing each year despite the work we do. So I was hoping you could speak a little to that as well.
Yeah, no, we have 3 sites. We have Central, Old Adamsville, and then at times Selena Butler that operate as cooling centers or warming centers. And those are the 3 locations. But if people find that during the summer or even the winter that they need a space to be cold or to be warmed, our recreation centers are predominantly open Monday through Friday and in some cases on Saturday, so people can seek those cooling or warming opportunities. But I will say those 3 sites are what we have at this point for emergency operations. If there is a surge, we also have additional sites in case of a mass event that we're ready to deploy, and we work in coordination with the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness. They're the ones that keep track of when we activate. So in the winter, they're looking at the calendar, and I think every week we get a anticipated, hey, you're going to be open because it's going to be X degrees, and so we're coordinating constantly with them to set up cots, tear down cots, move people from different spaces in our community centers to make sure that we have room for those who need refuge. Similarly, in the summer, we're also working with the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, and they're sending out a weekly email, alerting us to when at minimum, Central Park would open, and then if there's additional days of heat, we may open additional spaces for cooling. So we coordinate very closely with the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, and they're the ones that help us identify, or they're the ones that identify when we activate and when we don't activate.
Understood, thank you. Park Ranger program, which very glad it started. One personal ask, please put no off-leash signs in each of the parks. I beg of you. Because that way, when we ask people to leash their dogs and they're like, I know this feels very random and small, but it's like an everyday thing because there have been some dog attacks in the park. And so when we have told them leash your dogs, they say, we don't see any signs telling us to do so. So to help with the park rangers as well. And again, I love that we're having for security purposes. My parks, a lot of my parks have been very grateful for this. And neighbors, I was hoping that we could speak to, is there a chance, I know we're still scaling up this park ranger program for safety purposes. and I always ask you about programming, is there a chance that we will get to a place where the park ranger program can also do, we'll get big enough to do like educational programming for some of our youth?
Yeah, we're looking at other ways to address the educational need. I think, park ranger means a myriad of different things, right? You have your national park ranger. They've really become law enforcement rangers. And then you have your educational rangers, and there's very much a distinction within that ranger community as to what is a law enforcement ranger and what is a educational ranger. I think similarly, we're working with Wawa, Westside Watershed Alliance, and Nataki, Jelks Osborne to think about ways that we can expand environmental education. We're also working with Blue Heron. We're also working with Cascade Springs. So they're all different ways to provide that environmental education, both through a park ranger program, right, but also through our park ranger enforcement program.
Yeah.
So I think what you'll see, though, is growth of that over the next couple years through our partnerships with these other entities. So.
Thank you. And yeah, because I'm seeing, I have some schools in my district that are struggling, some of the elementary schools, and then I have a school like Mary Lynn that can pay $50,000 for their own composting program. So again, I'm looking at it through equity lens and looking at what LA County did during the pandemic with at-risk youth, and so I'm glad to hear that we're moving in that direction. And next question would be the park around the training facility. Have we made any strides there? Because this was a big promise, it was a great promise to bring a park to an underserved and overlooked community. And I want to say that our starting amount that we allocated was $3 million? Is that correct?
Yes, so we allocated, I think, just under $3 million,
Okay.
and so that park will open at the end of May. The park is basically 95% done. We couldn't open on April 29th when the Public Safety Training Center opened because we didn't have cameras.
Okay.
And that was a really critical element that we wanted to have out there.
And I know there's been a backlog. Have we been able to order the cameras?
Correct, and so that's been the challenge. They have been ordered. They are expected to be delivered, I think, next week or the week after, and then there'll be all the conduits installed, so all we have to do is get the cameras and then plop them on top of the conduit and connect them up and connect them with the VIC. That's one of the last things to get done, but the boardwalks are installed. I was out there with two individuals from the task force who were adamant about the park. We walked the whole park on the opening, and they were really excited. They took some videos, so people who have been to the space are excited for what it's going to be, and it's absolutely beautiful. I know the police chief, every time I see him, he's like, that space out there is amazing. And so now we're just putting on the finishing touches, and it'll be open at the end of May.
That's good to hear. Thank you. I was also going to speak about task orders. We've had a lot of trouble getting certain things across the finish line. When Aaron Wien was here, they were things that he believed were going to pass in the next few months, and it's actually taking us some years. And some of those task orders, like Bessie Branham and some of these other locations, still have not been completed, and we are unaware of why the delay is taking place. And there's just been kind of a drop in communication, and just wondering how we repair that, because we did get a lot of this in year one, year two, like right when you came on, which as a result, things got very positive, so thank you. But in terms of better communication, what can we do to achieve that? Because I'm not able to answer questions about why certain projects have not happened yet, and delays that are taking place. So I was hoping you could speak a little to that.
Yeah, actually, I'll have Deputy Commissioner Williams take that question. And do you want to talk about Bessie Branham and just we even talked about it this morning about how we want to improve community engagement with park planning and design.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So specifically, coming on board and understanding the process of how we are communicating, we're actually really working to improve that and pick up to where we left off. So for parks that we're working on, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
You're asking specifically about Betsy Branham, and
A few of them. I'm using Bessie Branham as an example, but we've had an issue in a couple of parks where the money's allocated and things are paid for and they're out, but we're not getting them done in the time that we initially thought. So we're like a year and a half past things being funded or things of that, not understanding where we are.
And on a case-by-case basis, we can actually follow up with you on specifically. There's a lot of things happening economy-wise, contractor-wise, and then our capacity-wise that are delaying how we're moving forward projects. And we're prioritizing some that are low-hanging fruit that are ready to go into the ground or ready to construct. And then the other ones, we have to work with our contractors to get the proper due diligence on board in terms of finalizing design, making sure stormwater, making sure security, making sure those other aspects are actually designed and fully ready to move forward. And that's what's delaying it. So you send me the list, I can follow up on those specifically. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I will send the list over.
Yeah.
And
As I look at my
Councilmember,
chief staff in the corner.
yeah, on Councilmember on that one, I know D.C. Williams might not have the history, but I know Keith Hicks is sitting behind me. I believe that project is starting within next week. There were some issues I know with the community. You've written to me about the design, and there's some strange issues with the trees.
You can just say Earl. You can just say Earl.
Okay,
No.
we're not
I mean,
going
it's-
to, yeah.
It's been timing.
Yeah, but there's been some issues with that. I do believe it's starting next week.
Okay.
I think we've had a fairly good success rate. I know we worked with council members Overstreet to get the William Walker roof. You know, we've got the Cohen roof, we've got the Lane Carson roof done. We've had a number of successes.
Many successes.
The one you mentioned, I don't think has been maybe on that list, but I think there's been some other things there, but I do believe that's supposed to start next week.
Yeah.
Well, it'll start the week after. I think next week is the Kirkwood Fair,
Yes,
so it'll
the
start
spring-
after the
spring
Kirkwood Fair.
Yeah, that's correct.
The spring fling, yeah.
Spring fling. They hear you say fair, they might come for me.
Apologies.
No, you're fine. So and y'all have done a fantastic job. I think I'm just asking for more communication, and I understand capacity is an issue, but so that I can make sure people are aware, because I want to, like, our department is doing such a great job that I want to be able to better communicate that. So if there's a way, and I'll send over the list so that we have that we better understand, but if there's a way to do check-ins on some of these bigger projects, that would be very helpful.
And I'll add something now that I've processed what you asked. We are actually kind of shifting things. We were a little siloed where things would be done by one person, handed off to another.
Yep.
We're assigning project managers per project so that we really do have that point of contact. And I think some of y'all have reached out and talked to some of our project managers individually on certain projects. And that's going to really help us understand where the project is and communicate more effectively.
Okay.
And so with this list, we will have a project manager for each one that can then be that point of contact so we make sure the communication line stays moving forward.
Understood, and I appreciate that. Have I asked, I don't think I've asked about the the salary at the help salary line, which seems to have, I was going to also ask for details on that, because that seems to have grown year after year after year. I believe we're over 3 million now. And so I was hoping y'all could speak to why that growth has taken, why there's so much more money being allocated each year, why those jumps are taking place.
Yeah, so under the extra help, this again is a seasonal position, so this is the camp staff, the park maintenance staff, and the lifeguards. So
Okay.
whereas in years past, we haven't fully funded it, and we've always been allowed to go over budget, now we're funding it at the level it needs to be and adjusting.
So a victim of your own success.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think finance and the
For sure.
COO and everybody said, hey, we know how this works, let's give you the budget and then hold you accountable.
Understood. The other piece, this one, arborists. So obviously, Jason does a great job, and there's a lot of issues. I mean, I first will say that DPR's response to emergency situations has been fantastic. Even if I text Commissioner about a down tree that we didn't know about, he's on it in less than an hour. So want to first say thank you for that. But I know that we have a backlog that we've caught up on some of things, but like stump removal and other issues, like how are we doing in that division? Is Mr. Ernst getting the additional help he needs? How are we ever caught? I know we had a 2-year backlog for a minute, so just wanted to check to see where we were on that.
No, I can take that, Councilmember. Overall, the entire division is doing well. As of, I checked, I thought I'd be asked, we have 12 backlog trees for forestry, which is a really low number for us. Most of those come, if you remember last fall, we had a storm. It wasn't huge, it wasn't named, but it was still 100 or more trees that landed in a week. And those will add to just the metric of trying to get those trees caught up. We're down to 12. They're all allocated. They're scheduled for removal. So on the forestry side, we're looking very well. Stump side has gone up. I think last year I reported we were close to around 300. We're probably closer to 400 right now, but stumps also do follow storms. So if we have 80 trees that drop, and they're all public trees within a week, that's 80 more stumps that all dropped in 48 hours.
Okay.
So we have the ability to do them in-house. Until we get all of the trees from our backlog down, we prefer to continue to use contracted to do the stumps, which honestly is just slower. But we are continuing to take stumps off. I will say this, if anyone in any of the districts have a stump, just have the person call us. We do escalate them. If I know that's important to you, that stump is either driving me crazy because I'm trying to plant grass or do whatever, we'll add it to the list and we can escalate it. We do have a number, but it does fluctuate over time.
Yeah. It makes sense. And this next question is actually, first of all, DC Voss, thank you. Film, and this might be, I'll ask film department, but it's come to my understanding that we actually don't charge for filming in our parks. And that is actually not a cost. And so I'm wondering why a multi-billion-dollar industry is not paying to utilize our parks. It feels like low-hanging fruit.
We can charge if they are renting something that has a fee. So if they rent a pavilion, if they rent a ball field, whatever's in the code, that's everything else, the fees would go through, film and entertainment. But if there's something that has a fee, absolutely we charge. But if there's something, just if they're using green space, you're correct.
So there's a legislative opportunity to change that.
You could change it, but right now, we charge what the fee, what the code allows, correct?
Thank you. I mean, the movie industry isn't hurting for money, so I appreciate that. Thank you. I know that we also I don't believe we do overnight fees either, but I thought I would ask about that. Last thing I was going to ask is, like, the new staff has been fantastic. If I would ask, if there's history on a project that you don't understand, please ask me. I would just appreciate it if we could be brought up to speed on certain things, some of them years in the making, so that we have a more efficient approach. So that's all I ask, is if you could either reach out to me or DC, you know the history of everything in my district, so if y'all could speak to DC Voss as well. But I do feel like we're moving in a really great direction. But please, I'm here as an asset for whatever you need, so thank you.
Ms. Boone.
Yes, on my list was the Lionel Hampton Beecher Hills Trail. At some point before June, we'd like to sit down with you all. It's 220 acres. We have a group of folks that have been working on a large project, and I know it may have to be done in phases, but I would like to see some activity on that trail as well. We have 6 entrances. None of them are marked. So it's a lot of things that we can do for the Lionel Hampton Trail, but I would definitely like to sit down with you all before that and see what is feasible, and I will send you an email with all of the details. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Well, sadly.
That concludes this week's budget hearings. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll resume our normally scheduled committee activities, but we'll be right back here a week from today for another all-day budget therapy session. I want to thank Team Finance. I want to thank all the people from the Mayor's office who have been here to help us along. Especially want to thank our staff and especially the technical people without whose help, we would not be able to pull this off as we await the opportunity to move back into our new digs. And so we are adjourned. Thank you.